Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time.
In this week's episode of the Kindness Project, we talk about Volcano, sun cream, and we have part 2 of our interview with Louise Mundy from HBBS Counselling.
Welcome one and all to the Kindness Project. I am joined today by two blokes with very short hair.
Is that your intro? Two blokes with very short hair.
Yep.
How long did that take to write?
I stopped writing them after about 50.
Two blokes with very short hair.
Look,
Two blokes with eyes, ears, and a nose. Two blokes with 5 fingers. Oh, actually, you live in Norfolk, didn't you? So yeah, you.
Yeah, but I'm not native Norfolk, so I don't have the thing.
Well, look,
I'm no stranger to the short hair club, but I don't even rival you two.
I mean, I could grow my hair out. My hair does grow.
Yeah.
Not on a particular part of my head. So, potentially I could grow my hair out. You ever thought about growing your hair out, Russ?
It'd look like a volcano, though, wouldn't it? Yeah, and then a crater in the middle.
It would. I could have a volcano. That is like a brand new hairstyle, the volcano. I can imagine people going in.
A small part of the skin red.
Yeah, I can imagine people going. Well, no, you dye your hair red, wouldn't you?
No,
or would you? Would you dye your hair brown?
It's the bald patch.
No, you dye the inner.
Why would I dye my bald patch red?
You dye the bald patch red, and then the outside you'd have like a grey stony colour.
Right, I'm gonna ask our podcast listeners, Mission 1, if you'd like to draw an image of a volcano hairstyle with a brown hair colour and then red as a bald patch. Please feel free to do that. I might ask Sophie to do that as well, Russ.
I'll be totally honest with you. If I had time, I'd pop on Photoshop later and give you a artist rendition.
Oh, God.
You know what would be really funny? If you just made the volcano out of your hair and then did that kid's science experiment.
Oh, yeah. With the baking soda and the...
I don't put baking soda on my bald patch. What are you two talking about?
And
I'm always
Right, it's a Wednesday morning. Is it Wednesday? I'm losing track of time.
I think it's Wednesday.
Yeah,
no, it's even a Thursday, so it's Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday morning as we're recording this, listeners.
It'll be Thursday when you hear it.
And it'll be Thursday when you hear it. And I've been asked at 8 o'clock in the morning to put baking soda on my bald patch. Where does that come from?
Wondered, though, do you have to put sun cream on your bald patch?
You know what? I should, Russ. I should definitely put sun cream on my bald patch, but I don't. I am foolish when it comes to putting sun cream on because I can't go out in the sun, and because I'm quite dark skinned anyway. I go out in the sun and go, what? Don't need that now. Listeners, I am not suggesting you do that, right? Always wear sunscreen is very good advice.
Yes.
But I don't, and I should. Do you, Russ?
What, put sun cream on my bald patch?
And look, don't rub it in. I know everybody knows you haven't got a bald patch, and I've got a bald patch.
Oh yeah.
But do you put sunscreen on?
No, never.
Is that because you never go out?
See, no. See, I tan the same way that you do. But one, you've been on an extra holiday this year, and
sorry, you had a month around Europe.
So did you? We went together.
No, I know, but it's not like you've not gone anywhere, is it?
But you're a lot darker than I am at the moment.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's because I just don't go outside.
Maybe that's the case. Russ is checking his watch halfway through a podcast. We keep you up, Russ.
I was checking whether I got a tan or not.
Ah, right. Now, the way to do it is the watch tan line. Have you got a watch tan line?
I haven't.
I've got ring tan lines.
I only recently got the watch.
So, unofficial question of the podcast is: do you, listeners, wear sunscreen? And if so, what factor do you wear? And are you like me, who's an absolute fool and doesn't wear it enough? Or are you quite sensible when it comes to sunscreen? That, Russ, might be the worst unofficial question of the podcast I've ever asked.
I think it is. I don't think we're
I'm
using
sorry, I
that
couldn't
as
give
the
that
main
one. I was busy checking where all my tan lines are. It's just under my ring.
Under your rings, yeah, as it happens. What's the best tan you've ever had?
I don't like the sun.
Are you a vampire?
Yeah.
Are you a vampire?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the best tan? Have you been like sunbathing in a car park in Norwich, right? So had an amazing tan.
I get paranoid about the sun and tan
Go on.
after I see something on telly about moles and skin cancer. But the time I did get a tan, quite a good tan, was when we was in Turkey, when it was very hot.
That was 25 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, our holiday next week will be the first holiday I've been on since Turkey. So
yeah, I mean, I've only been on a couple, right? So I won't worry in that time.
that's a
How are
long.
you feeling about the holiday? Because I saw, so listeners, if you don't know, Russ, I mean, if you've ever listened before, you know that Charlotte's my daughter and Russ is my carer. I mean, brother.
No,
I mean,
I feel like it sometimes.
I don't know how that would be possible, considering you live 2 hours apart.
Virtual carer. Is my virtual carer. No, I mean, to be fair, Rose, you do care for me virtually, don't you?
No, I'm more your PA than your carer.
Yeah. But Rose is my brother, and we are going on a little trip, Rose. Do you want to tell our audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was down back in the last year when Chris and me dad suggested that we go on holiday together.
Yeah.
I was skeptical at first, but I said I'd give it a go. It's the only time I'm going to try it. So,
What about if you enjoy it?
well, after the abuse I've got building up to it, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it.
Is this because they keep calling you the whipping boy?
It's called banter, Russ. It's called banter.
I like a bit of banter.
Have you got your little sailor's outfit?
I haven't.
Oh, mate, you got a couple of days.
Oddly enough, when I phone Daddy, I'll try and call him once a week. He keeps saying to me, "Get a pair of budgie smugglers."
So are you gonna
Apparently, he's got a pair of budgie smugglers and a sailor's cap.
Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I'm off to our hotel tonight, and I think they've got the swimming pool. So I better pack my. I like to swim. I don't swim as much at the minute because I've got
Well, talking of
near
swimming,
thing.
I'm thinking of adding swimming to my new health regime.
100%. Swimming is really good. Where's your nearest pool?
Deerham.
Deerham.
I thought he was just going to say a lake.
Yeah, exactly. Where's your nearest pool? I'm going to just jump in the sea. I'm just going to do that. But I found I used to wear like sort of big shorts. But the problem is like they never stayed on, Russ. They just like,
Not what I always found about big shorts. When you get in the water, they tend to fill with air.
Exactly. So I had to change my swimming trunk regime to a quite tight lycra-based. Why are you doing that for? I'm not like, it's not a fashion thing, Charlotte. I'm not like sort of doing it to.
It was the lycra. I'm like, no one was lycra other than.
That's funny you say that.
No, but cyclists wear lycra, don't they?
I was on Amazon.
Wear lycra.
I was on Amazon the other day.
Go on.
All right.
I see this lycra running suit. compression suit,
Right.
the leggings, the shorts, and the top. I brought myself one. And I've tried it on. It looks good.
Nice.
Amazing, Russ.
You had to take a momentary to think about that.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to take no pictures, but it looks all right.
Good. When are you going out for your first run?
I'm not going running. I wanted it for the gym.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And what's it meant to do? What is it? Is there health benefits to it?
It helps you regulate your temperature better.
Oh, cool.
Better than sort of gym clothes.
And as all our listeners are following your health regime, how's it going?
Yeah, it's not going so bad. I've lost nearly a stone now.
Amazing. Nice. Well done, mate. Well done.
I think when I got on the scales this morning, it was £11.4.
Brilliant. That's really good. Well done, Russ. And I'm sure that our listeners will be following your weight loss journey with interest. Let's come on to our a visual question in the podcast, which I'm sure there's going to be a bit of chatter about this, which is what is your favourite mug? Now, we will talk about this, but if you'd like to tell us what your favourite mug is, you can get in touch in the following ways.
You spoke to me and I had to burp right in that moment. So sorry.
If anybody accuses us of not being a professional podcast, that you're right.
It's on him.
You're right. It's not me. I don't burp in it. I don't make comments like Volcano heads, do I? Eh? I make sillier comments, but anyway.
I think
how do people get in touch?
Anyway, so on Twitter we're at All of Kindness. On Facebook, if you type the Kindness Project into the search bar, we should be the first thing to come up. Same with the Google machine thing, it's the Kindness Project podcast. If you just go www.thekindnessproject.co.uk, we should come up because that's the URL. If you want to email us directly without going to the website first, it's oliver@thekindnessproject.co.uk.
That's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we've got anything else. I know we've got an Instagram, but it's not as well, the socials.
No, MySpace, Friends Reunited, all that sort of stuff. No, none of that. Russ, we haven't set any of that up, no? Grindr?
No.
Why your obsession with Grindr?
I'm not obsessed with Grindr. I've got a friend. Actually, he listens to the podcast. But I've got a friend.
So do you want to tell the story?
No. Right. On that note, Russ, let's go to more safer territory and let's talk about mugs. Who's your favourite mug? Sorry, what's your favourite mug?
I like my Costa cups.
You like a travel cup, yeah. So you don't drink out of a mug, no?
No, not out of a mug, no.
I'll tell you what I'm loving at the minute. Tin mug. Old fashioned. No, genuinely. I am finding that my morning coffee tastes a little bit better out of a old school tin mug. What's your favourite mug, Charlotte?
Oh. See, I've got a lot of mugs. Got my mug collection. My business branded mug collection.
Yeah, Charlotte's got an obsession with, and again, listeners, if you'd like to help Charlotte with this, I'm sure she'd be more than welcome. If you've got a business or brand that you'd like to promote, send Charlotte the mug and we will be promoting it on the Kindness Project.
Yeah, there's actually an Instagram for it now.
Tell us about that.
It's Charlotte's Mug of the Week. I haven't started posting anything yet, but I will. Because I just love business branded mugs.
You'll have to send me the link. I'll share it on the show notes.
Oh, yeah.
Charlotte's Mug of the Week.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about maybe starting a podcast, like Charlotte's Facts of the Week.
I love that.
I do my articles, just like a podcast form of that.
Well, do you want to plug your articles as well? Because you never do that on the podcast.
Cool. I have a website and I write stuff. So one of my favourite ones to talk about is actually one of the earlier ones I did about 2 years ago now, about the link between sort of invasion and the spread of disease and infection. Look, I started writing these mid-COVID. Some of it was gonna leak, and so it was looking at sort
That
of
sounds like quite a cathartic one. Do you know what I mean? With
so a lot
COVID.
of them are, but it was sort of like the link between invasion and infection, and so how sort of the spread of stuff like colonization and stuff like that spread diseases throughout the world. So one of the first recorded diseases was actually a consequence of the invasion of Greece by the Roman Empire.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Aztecs and the Incas, part of the contributing factor for them sort of
Spanish flu being brought over by the English.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
there was an island, and it became sort of a holiday destination for colonizers, and the colonizers were immune to the disease they were carrying, and they moved into the island as sort of a holiday retreat, sort of like, and spread it to all the localers, islanders.
the what?
The localers.
The localers. That's a new one. That's a new word.
Yeah.
The
I was thinking
localers.
islanders and locals at the same time, and they crossed over. And like it just so there's a big connection between.
Oh,
Call me unprofessional.
look at that. We've had a burp and a sneeze on this podcast. We're loving life. On that note, definitely check out Charlotte's blogs.
It updates
They are
every
amazing.
Thursday.
I remember being away with Charlotte and traveling around Europe, and we're traveling to all these places. And late one night, Charlotte was busy tapping on a keyboard, and I went, "What are you doing?" And she just looked at me manically and went, "I'm writing about spiders." So she does take it seriously.
I remember being on
I'm writing about spiders.
I remember being on the train back and going, "Did you know
I know.
that flies can have 600 babies in a lifetime?" Like,
Yeah. That is the sort of amazing facts you can expect on charlottedames.com. And on that note, as we're doing a bit of a self-promotion, let's talk about the Kindness Project book. Russ and I had a meeting with our publisher last week, Russ, didn't we?
We did.
Which went really well. And we have now, have we got a date, Russ, for the publishing?
Yes, 17th of November.
So we are actually publishing the book on the 17th of November. Please visit www.thekindnesproject.co.uk/book. No?
Yeah. So visit the kindnessproject.co.uk and click on the link that says book.
Click on the link that says book. We add you to our communication list, and you get exclusive stuff. You get loads of free bits that we haven't decided what we're doing yet, Russ, have we? But we will make sure that you get amply rewarded for signing up, as long as you get a copy of the book, that is. Yeah, that's it. And let's move on to the next part.
Kindness news.
Now, you know what I'm chatting about, Charlotte? That's one of the last times for a long time we're going to be doing that live.
We're going to be recording one more episode then.
We are. The penultimate
I'll put more gusto in it next time, I promise.
The kindness.
Sorry, I got confused about the show format.
That is because Charlotte today, as we record these last two podcast episodes, is off to uni.
We'll still record it. We'll just have to do it over Zoom.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Are you sad?
I'm a bit sad.
You miss me?
Of course, I mean, I'm definitely going to miss you. But I mean, what will make me feel better is whipping Russ on the boat as the.
Yeah.
I'm not going to whip Russ on the boat. No, this is getting weird. Right, let's talk. As the format of this podcast is all about sharing stories, people doing amazing stuff in the world, let's do a bit of that instead of talking about whipping Russ on a boat. Friends saved over 1 million gallons of paint from landfill by rescuing and remixing it to give it a new colour. Meet the friends who have saved more than 1.05 million gallons of paint from landfills by rescuing used cans, refilling and remixing them to give each one of them a new lease of life. Kat Hyde and Kate Morey had a passion and drive to make a difference by repurposing waste material while making money at the same time. Since settling on paint and co-founding Seagulls in 2004, the pair have collected around 300 tonnes of paint each year from the landfill. They have grown the company to employ 14 staff members who manage 10 volunteers in their English hometown of Leeds, Yorkshire. We started by just collecting half-used paint tins in the back of my car, Kat said. The team then sorts the good and bad paint and reblends with new colours requested by customers, all at an affordable price, 75% less than in the stores. We haven't heard of anyone recycling paint before, said 43-year-old Kat. We were able to work with the local council to collect all the waste paint in Leeds and recycle as much of it as we can. It's very labour intensive to scrap all the paint tins and reblend colours, but we love it. In the past 18 years, we have diverted over 4 million litres of paint, which would have caused 11.4 million tonnes of carbon. I've never heard of anybody recycling paint before. Have you? Have you?
Yeah. I think I've seen these guys on Insta or something.
Are they on Insta? Is that, you know what? I need to get some Insta in my life, but the fact that I've deleted all social media apps off my phone now means that I'm not seeing this stuff. I'll let Charlotte tell me. The social enterprise says that in order to offset that much CO2, guess how many million trees would have had to be planted?
9.2 million.
Charlotte?
11 million?
9.2 and 11 million. The work that they've done to offset 11.4 million tonnes of carbon, 68 million trees would have had to be planted. So the work they're doing is amazing in terms of the sort of carbon offset. The company also gives a lift to those of different backgrounds. We've helped vet previous offenders, those who have struggled with their mental health, and young people who have been isolated. Seagull's paint store also runs decorating workshops and gets involved with art in their community. We want everyone to be able to decorate their homes. I love that idea. I love that idea. You know, that we were having a conversation before we jumped on the podcast this morning about collectivist culture versus individualist culture, Russ, and the fact that if we all did our little bit as a collective, we could have a huge impact, couldn't we?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it's really interesting. Well done, you guys, for getting that done. Next on the Kindness News rota is two people from the Independent's most inspirational people list. We're hoping we're going to get in touch with the people on the list over the next couple of weeks or so, and we're hoping to make sure that we're in a position where we get them on. So look out for the interviews for some of these people as we go on. But the first one I want to highlight is Gavin Alty. Gavin launched a bike recycling scheme during lockdown and has since fixed over 300 bikes across Yorkshire. Gav's bike started when he realised his neighbours were about to throw away a neglected bike. I really don't like waste and couldn't see something like that going into the landfill. The initiative has raised more than £5,000 for cancer research and local charities and donated bikes to Ukrainian refugees in the UK. This February, Gavin also launched a football team to raise money for food vouchers and to make sure families had presents at Christmas. The project just means so much to me, he says. I feel that it's given me a purpose in life and I want to keep it going as well as I can. So well done, Gavin. Amazing work there. And the other person we want to showcase on the podcast is Ali Beg. Having grown up, studied and started his career in Southampton, British Pakistani Ali realised that the Pakistani community although the area's largest ethnic group were often the lowest achievers. Determined to try and improve their opportunities and overcome barriers, Ali began volunteering at a local radio station for ethnic communities, where he launched the station's first British Pakistani show featuring health and welfare advice. It led him to set up his own community radio station, which aims to link and strengthen communities across the UK. The person who nominated Ali says most of the volunteers at the radio station have been refused training or volunteering at other radio stations. Thanks to Ali, those people have now got an opportunity. Love that. Well done, Ali. That's great work. Let's move on to our interview. Louise Mundy is on the podcast talking about the amazing work she does. Let's listen to it. Now we talked a little bit about how technology has changed during the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Has the demand for counselling, the way you deliver it, has clearly changed, but has the demand for counselling changed since the pandemic? Tell me a bit about that.
Not really.
Okay.
I'd say not in quantity of referrals. So we're probably just about back at pre-COVID levels in terms of session delivery. Now we do a lot more work in terms of dealing with inquiries and people who phone looking for help and so on than just deliver individual counselling. But as with all services and businesses, you have your things that you can count, don't you? And we count the number of sessions, and because that's how we use our grants. That's how we essentially monitor. We have to. We get the income from the grants for the sessions we deliver. So really, that is important to us. That's how we generate income for central staff and so on. So I would say that the demand there's peaks and troughs. It's quite seasonal. It's always very quiet in August. It's always very quiet in December in terms of new inquiries, because people often make the decision of let's get Christmas out of the way, let's have our holidays and see how we feel then, and so on. So
I suppose the interesting thing about Christmas is for a lot of us, it can be quite a stressful time, can't it? And I think the stress of that. I think with Christmas is really interesting, isn't it?
Yes, but January we're very busy.
Yeah.
And people say to us, well, I just wanted to get Christmas out of the way, or I thought after Christmas I might feel different, and so on. But I think so in terms of volume, it hasn't. We try not to run with a waiting list. It's generally between 10 and 20, but sort of when we were struggling to get operational after COVID, it did go up to about 70. But that's kind of, so we like to support people quite quickly. But what I would say is that it's the demands of the individual people, or the severity of the situation that they're in, or the impact of prolonged isolation, that people are coming to us with more serious mental health issues. So it's generally pre-COVID are typical, although I hesitate to use that word because it is about people, but there isn't another one that does as well. So our typical client would be somebody who was sort of maybe bereaved 6 months ago, had sort of picked up the threads of normal life, but not quite feeling themselves, maybe some complicated issue to do with them and the person who died, or something like that. And that would have been our the bulk of our work. Those are the sorts of issues that we were supporting people with. As you know, there's a process of grief, and it's it's a sort of a shock stage, an acceptance stage, and kind of an adjustment and moving forward in very simple terms. And it's quite normal for people to get stuck on that somewhere. Maybe they're just having trouble picking things up and moving on. Maybe they're having trouble,
Is there a typical phase of bereavement and grief people get stuck on? So is it across each stage is relatively similar in terms?
It depends on it's all unique. I mean, it's completely unique. It depends on lots of factors. It depends on the personality, the relationship of the person who's died. It depends on the relationship of the person who's grieving. So I think it's normal to go through the cycle. So with quite a lot of people who contact us, we kind of say, look, it's a sort of, we listen to what they have to say, and we say, look, it is a journey. It will take some time, and these are the warning signs. But you're feeling this acute pain for now. But like say, it's a sort of come back to us if it continues for you. But it's a process, and you need to experience this, and that's quite normal. So we do a lot of that normalizing. But the what we found with sort of like post-COVID lockdown clients is often they've been bereaved in particularly traumatic circumstances. So there are lots of stories out there of people who died in hospitals on their own, or their relatives feel that they were on their own, that people didn't get to say their goodbyes, they weren't together at funerals, and all of those things. So so those sorts of things can complicate a grieving process.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because like you think about the process of going to a funeral and celebrating somebody's life, or during my mum passed away in 2019, and part of my grieving process, even though it isn't over, that continues. I think part of the process, Louise, was having the opportunity to and funerals are really interesting, and I'm sure that what your work with sort of bereaved clients it provides you an insight into this. But I find funerals interesting because of the fact that if I look at my mum's funeral, it was all about celebrating her life, and there was a lot of laughter actually about the stories we told about her life. But that creating those memories and reminding ourselves of the stories was a really important part of the grieving process for me. Now, if you take that opportunity to grieve away and share that with other people, I think part of the challenge of COVID is that we couldn't do it, right? In certain parts of COVID, we couldn't do that element.
And I think that, people are comforted by, their last time they saw someone, about the fact that, or even the smallest of details. And there's so much that people don't know, isn't there, about other people's final hours and so on in that situation. And then there's a funeral side to it and so on. But then also as well, there's the period of, I think it's isolation too, because a lot of people didn't have their normal support networks. They weren't hugging their neighbours. It was just lots of things were missing. So not only have people been bereaved or had significant loss, but it's been compounded because maybe there's been other things as well. Maybe they've been furloughed and not at work. Now they're worrying about whether or not they can go back to work. Maybe somebody else has died as well.
So there's additional elements that have created additional stress.
So whereas before it was sort of that we were supporting a wide range of people, but then it was only a very small minority that we would say were in acute need.
Sure.
But now it's by far the majority. It's the majority of people, because they've just not had that normal support network, and they've not gone through, as you say, funerals and all of those processes that usually support people.
I'm a great believer in stories being a really powerful way to explain the impact of people's work. So what story do you think best describes the work you do?
Right. Well, this is a bit of a tricky one, to be honest. And I've given this a lot of thought, because the work that we do is confidential.
Yeah.
I can't really, and it wouldn't be right, and I wouldn't not even consider it. I can't say to you, it's not as if we've delivered another service and I can say to you, like say somebody ordered a wardrobe and we delivered it and they were really pleased with it and so on. It's just not that sort of thing. But what I can do is I can give you some scenarios of the sorts of things that people say to us when they get in touch with us. Yeah, and the sorts of things that they say at the end. Yeah, I did consider putting together a blended picture of different things from different people, but and I'm sure a lot of local people listen to this, and then immediately they put 2 and 2 together, and they think, "Oh, I know a family like that." And it's
I mean, look, 100%.
yeah. So, and also, and even in my role as service manager, as a non-counsellor, I don't have access to that level of detail. We do anonymised case studies and things like that. So, but what I can tell you, because this is what's shared with me, is the sorts of things that people say when they get in touch. Okay, so I've mentioned a few of them already. Really, I think that they sometimes they would say, "I feel like I'm going mad. I can't remember when I get into the shop. I can't remember what I'm supposed to be buying. I keep dropping things. I keep bursting into tears. I'm struggling to get out of bed. My work's really gone downhill. I can't concentrate. I can't concentrate at school. I can't concentrate at work. My friends all think I'm crazy. They've all been really lovely to me, and now they're just trying to avoid me. I feel like they're avoiding me because I'm not joining in with what I usually join in with. I've got, I'm not enjoying anything. All the things I used to do just don't give me any pleasure whatsoever. I just feel like no one understands me. My husband just thinks that I'm, an emotional, and I'm an emotional wreck, and he doesn't understand, and and my children know there's something wrong, but it's just like life is just not working for me. Yeah, and then they would often talk about the specific nature of a bereavement, and then go into details of it, but in a way that's very not incoherent, but very jumbled. They talk about the funeral 1 minute, and then talk about the last time they saw the person another. Then in the middle of that, they might say, something that someone else has said that they thought was unfeeling, and generally just not coping.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of scenario, and you get those sorts of comments from everyone at every age. Struggle, and it's all about isolation, about relationships, and so on. And what counselling is able to do is kind of unpick all of that. The discussion is led by the counsellor, but they would look at different aspects of the client's life, and ask them to explain things. Why, sort of like, so how does that come about? So why do you feel that? So why do you think they might have said that? What could you say to them? What would you say to them now if they were here now? And, those sorts of things. And then hopefully by kind of unpacking it, and it's almost like taking the lid off the box, really, that they explore any issue that they want to, but the counsellor will also be aware of things they clearly don't want to talk about. Yeah. And as appropriate, if appropriate, will address those issues as well. So, maybe something goes back to childhood. Maybe something goes back to another incident in their lives where they've sort of got a particular mindset about a particular person or a particular issue. But it's it's unpacking it.
Yeah.
And it's also about equipping people, as I said before, with the language and the strategies for dealing with it going forwards.
So I completely get that. So somebody comes along, they're experiencing symptoms is probably the wrong word for it, but they're experiencing sort of these things where they're just completely dissatisfied with the way their life is going. I suppose in my head, Louise, this is the sort of bit I've got in my head. Mental, and again, all the conversations we have on the podcast about it, mental health is a lifelong thing that we've got to make sure we maintain, and there's always elements where we are, probably a bit more off kilter at times, and then more in balance at times. But what's the aim of the counselling, like in terms of when people stop using your service?
Right,
Number
okay.
one,
So that, yeah,
and as
so
you
that-
say, what do they say that you're doing the job in the right way?
Okay, yes. Well, I think the thing is that we work as a short-term intervention.
Yeah.
Strategy. Yeah. So we are looking at not really telling people what to do or making decisions for them or making them dependent on us. It's about empowerment of the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes, as you know, somebody's saying something like, so why do you think they said that? We could all do with that every now and then, couldn't we, or something like that? So it's a bit, it's about looking at things from a different perspective.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And then, if you're talking about a relationship breakdown, and then saying, well, how would you explain that? Say to me what you want to say to them. Yeah. And it's a bit like, well, where do you think that conversation would go? Is that something, or what other things could you say, and so on. So it's about empowerment as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And there are, in a sort of a linear fashion, people would make a referral because they say, or would get in touch and say, I'm not coping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they would have 4 or 5 things that they would articulate as being, this is not working for me. Okay, so the aim would be to work with these clients, or to listen to them, to ask them questions, to talk to them, so that they would be at a point of almost coming back to you and saying, well, I said I couldn't do this wasn't working, I wasn't getting on with them.
Now I've made progress.
Actually, they actually go, do you know what? Things have moved on. I've spoken to them. I've said this, and so on, and then say, I went out last night and I really enjoyed it, and I didn't feel guilty for enjoying it, and so that's the sign.
And that's the fascinating thing, isn't it? How often is it worse in our heads than it actually is when we take that action? Really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So the counsellor would really make that professional decision of, you've made a lot of, you've been on a journey, you've made a lot of progress, and you're telling me you're coping better. So I think that actually this particular intervention, this support, this way of working with you, is coming to an end. Right now. And then you'd have a sort of like a goodbye session where you kind of pull the whole things to a close, and so on. And then that would be the end of the counselling. But it doesn't mean that somebody wouldn't come back. It wouldn't be that something else didn't happen a week, 6 weeks, 6 years down the line, and they're a bit like, oh, I feel like I'm going back. Yeah. So there is that. So it's empowering them as well to seek help in the future. But then, having said that, sometimes there are issues that clients aren't ready to talk about.
Yeah.
And the counsellor may have the dialogue at the end of the counselling, which is a bit like, we've gone as far as we can for now.
Yes.
And that's about empowerment, isn't it? It's like, I've taken you, we've gone together as far as we can now. You need to live a bit. Yeah. But you can come back if you need to, and so on. So that's another scenario of a way to bring about an ending.
So I suppose there's 2 elements, isn't there? Number one is unpacking some of the challenges somebody's faced and supporting them with those specific challenges. But as you say, there's a lot of what are the tools that you can potentially use to maintain a more positive, and I'm not saying positivity is always the right answer, but have a healthier mindset and framework. Or
an understanding of what's happened to you, how you got into the position that you got into, and maybe how you could have stopped that happening. So it's those sort of things that are a bit like, oh, that's the warning. We've all got I think, and this is where physical and mental health can, is so different, and it doesn't need to be. I think if you did too much running, you would know, and you'd be a bit like, oh, that was a bit far.
Yeah, you'd rest, wouldn't you?
Oh, that was a bit far today. I'm going to have a couple of days off, or so on, or and you would do that. And it's really the same with mental health, that we've all got our warning signals. Mine is that I lose interest in preparing food for the family. It's a really bizarre thing. If I'm really swamped, I'm a bit like, oh, what's for dinner? Whereas if I'm in a good place, I can get my head around shopping and cooking. It's one of the,
right.
So, but we're not as good, I think, generally at spotting those signs in ourselves.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what tool? I mean, and again, if you're not able to share, please don't. But what tools do you use personally? If you get into that position, what's the sort of knowing what you know about counselling and what,
Yeah.
even though you're not a practitioner but working in that field, what do you do to go, right, actually I need to make some change? What tools do you use?
Well, pre-lockdown, I'd have said it was time with friends, or or sociable sport. Yeah.
Yeah.
In lockdown, I learned that it was time by myself. Yeah. So a long walk. A long walk is a very good way to sort of process that.
Yeah, time in nature is amazing.
By yourself. Yeah. So that's fabulous. I also have a moment of clarity. Some mornings in that in between before you're fully awake stage, that's often where I wake up with solutions, and that's sometimes rather than leaping out of bed, to spend that extra 10 minutes just half awake, half asleep. That's when that's a good time for me for addressing things. Bizarrely, I don't know quite how that works. I have my best ideas then.
So I will share mine. So at least our listeners have got a few ideas potentially. Yes. So my one, I mean, exercise for me is a big one. So as you say, balance in exercise is really important. But I find that I'm definitely more less balanced mentally if I don't exercise. So exercise for me is really important. But the one that gets me, and I'm trying to be a bit more consistent about this more recently, is two. So it's number one is gratitude. So I spend a bit of time in the morning just going, right, look, and again, if we're having this conversation, Louise, on a podcast in a relatively wealthy part of the world, where there's way too much to be grateful for, but interestingly, I've got a lot more to be grateful for than most people. So gratitude helps me because effectively remembering what opportunities I've got, number one, to contribute to the world, but also in terms of the opportunities I've been given, is really helpful. And then, and again, it's an interesting one because even though I host a podcast called The Kindness Project, I sometimes need to remind myself that I need to be a bit kinder. So what I've started to do, and it's really interesting, is just send every morning 3 messages to other people, just saying thanks, or just saying I really enjoyed meeting, and that really that helps my own positive health because it's like just no agenda, and again, it's one of those things where I say no agenda. I'm sending it because I know it makes me feel better, but hopefully it brightens up their day as well. Yeah. So definitely that. It's an interesting one because I'm an extrovert, but I'm also quite introspective. So the spending time on my own, reading is my big one. But if I do too much of that, I then don't get the balance in the other areas. But gratitude and kindness are the two things and health are the 3 things that make me feel better. So that was part 2 of Louise's interview. Charlotte's ready to mention the fact that
tis the end of another podcast, but the end is never truly end. Yes, no?
Yes, and did we have any answers for this week's question in the podcast?
We haven't.
We haven't. Oh, what a shame. So we're going to carry on last week's question in the podcast to make sure that we can that we can carry on.
What was the question?
Last week's question in the podcast was, and I'm surprised we didn't get loads of answers on this, listeners, is if you had a talk show, who would you have on first? So let us know that, and what's your favourite mug are the 2 questions we're going to ask. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of The Kindness Project.
Bye.
Bye.